So hi everyone, welcome. This is, I think, our 10th or 11th cross-country check-in. And so glad you could join us today. I'm Laurie Sigfridson. I am the president of PHE Canada. And I have with me today a colleague and friend and fellow Islander, Mary Beth Rogers-Neal. And Mary Beth and I are going to help facilitate a conversation today around the latest guidelines resource that PHE Canada has put together. It was a pan-Canadian effort to create a resource to help ministries of health and education to ensure that the two subject areas, health and physical education, are included in the learning continuity planning and programs for next year. And so today we're going to chat about the document and talk about different ways that we can use the document, share the document, and ensure that the work that we do is continued in a meaningful way. And I'm coming to you from kind of foggy Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, but I'm still going to get outside this afternoon and enjoy it regardless. And I'm just going to hand it over to Mary Beth so she can introduce herself.
Thanks, Laurie. Hi, everyone. I'm coming to you from sunny Prince Edward Island, and really honored to be on the call today. I appreciate Laurie asking me, among all of the incredible people who contributed to these guidelines. I have to say a special hi to Megan, our president of our association, and Ashley. I see Ashley on there too, and sorry if I'm missing anyone else because I can't see all the pictures right now. This is a really important conversation today, and I'm really thrilled to be part of it and to learn from everyone on the call each time we've connected. Thanks to PHE hosting these calls, Laurie and Melanie and the team for building this community of practice so we can come together during this really uncertain time and talk about these important things and try to plan when things are unknown.
And so just a little housekeeping for today. If you see the side profile of Mary Beth and myself, it's because we probably have two screens going at the same time. We have our, we're trying to monitor the chat as well as we have a discussion document going so that if somebody raises their hand, our office staff put it up into our live document to let us know that someone has a question or would like to share. And so if we're not looking directly at you and you see our side profile, that's why. Also, at the bottom of your screen, where you can see all your toggles for the conversation, there is a raise hand function that you can use. So we'll be looking for that, but also you can put questions in the chat. And as we go through and try to monitor the chat, we may call on various people to kind of maybe expand on their thoughts. And so please, this is a conversation for you. Mary Beth and I are here to kind of start the conversation off, but this is really your opportunity to connect, to share, to question, to challenge, to help work through the current situation that we're in, because none of us, we've said it multiple times on these calls, we've never ever experienced anything like this. So none of us have the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow with all the answers. And so if there's something that you want to raise and you think it could be meaningful for other people, please do that. These calls are for you. And so right now I'm sharing my screen, and I hope can everyone see it okay? Maybe if you could just give a nod, if a couple of you nod or give me a thumbs up, I know that you can see it all right. Perfect. And so Mary Beth and I and Ross, and there's been a team of others, Ted Temertzoglu, Louise Humbert, and I am going to forget people, so I probably should not have started with names, worked on this document, and within 6 days, Melanie and the staff created an evergreen document, the evergreen in the meaning that we want it to be nimble, we want it to be responsive. And so as our environment changes and the information that we get around COVID-19 changes, that this document will change as well, so that we are providing the most up-to-date and the most evidence-based information, sure that our subject areas continue and are a part of meaningful learning experiences for our students. And so that out came the creation of the Return to School PHE Canada Education, Health and Physical Education Guidelines. Right now, many of our ministries of education and health are working with our chief health officers around public health protocols on the opening of various industries and sectors within our communities, and we wanted to make sure that they had at their disposal a document created by people within the field who understood the environment best to have some influence or at least be a part of the conversation, and so the guidelines. Let's see if I can move this forward. There we go. And so just part of the process that we took, really looking at so the comprehensive school health frameworks. Most of our provinces have in some way, shape, or form a health promoting schools or CSH framework that we work off of. Of course, the trauma-informed approach and UNICEF's framework for reopening schools. And so really looking at the different evidence that is available to us to make sure that the document we did create was really rooted in evidence. And so just the contributors, so you know that you were well represented. We had PhD teachers from across the country, curriculum specialists, our researchers, our academics from within our research council, as well as employees from various government sectors that also have who are stakeholders and play a role in the ongoing learning and health and well-being of students. And so we created a draft document, and within the draft document, it is for, like I said, ministries, departments of health, public health, school systems to help make decisions around how to best move forward for September 2020. Attached up is now just a quick list of the people that were involved. And so you can see we had representatives from coast to coast in a lot of different sectors. Again, those stakeholder pieces were really important for us. And so thank you to everyone who responded so quickly and put as much time, effort, and energy into this document. And what is produced, I think, is a really well-founded, evidence-based, inclusive document that can be used. And so these were our reviewers. So there was a group of us that were writing and creating, and then once we had the document drafted, we had a team of reviewers to go through it. And again, thank you to everyone who participated, who are our partners, who are our stakeholders, who are our researchers in the field that are creating new knowledge within our subject areas, and for taking your time to help us develop this resource. And as we go through the resource, you'll see how we've broken it down. And we have broken it down into 4 different areas, and so that with 3 different situations within the document. So a blended, a complete return to school or at-home learning. And so where you can find the document is on our website. Also tag us in any social media. Use the hashtag #WeSupportPE. That's part of our ongoing campaign right now. And I'm going to turn it over to Mary Beth to start with our first question to get the conversation started.
Always looking for the mute button. I guess, what we really want while we have such an incredible audience in front of us is just, hands up and thinking about, I know some of you have had the opportunity to go through the guidelines, but maybe some of you have not yet. But in thinking about the guidelines, and I would ask, I know Ross is on this call, and Kelly, Grant, Lara, please contribute, because I know I'm missing people too. Sylvie, Renee, you're on the call. Thinking about how these can be utilized within your provinces or within your roles. And I guess we'll start there. If someone can pop in the chat or open up your mic and talk about how these could serve you in your role.
Yeah, Steve from Nova Scotia here. Yeah, we it's a great conversation piece to get it rolling, right? Before this or before we have stuff like this, people aren't even going to talk to us. They're not even going to think about us. But when we come with something like this, with the research put into it, they're going to listen, and we can help dictate kind of the way we come back, rather than have someone who has no knowledge kind of dictate to us. So it's really great that this was put together by PHE.
Thanks, Steve. I see Kelly Baker posting in the chat to advocacy, and like Lori mentioned, there's no handbook for what to do in a pandemic, and what our decision makers are thinking about right now is not messing things up, to just be sort of blunt and not look back and say, oh, we should have done this and we should have done that. And we know that it's so important to put the health and well-being of our learners. It's always important to put that first, and then learning comes. But we know now that we especially are marginalized children and youth. This has been exacerbating for inequity and things like that. But even our most privileged people being out of school has disadvantaged their learning path. And so all of the expertise that have gone into the document can contribute to really supporting, hey, this is how we come back, and not even being a question of whether it is part of that plan. I see Grant McManus from Manitoba has his hand up.
Thanks, Mary Beth. I've seen through Twitter that a number of people have shared this or retweeted this document through to their various teacher federations, which is an awesome strategy. In Manitoba, we have a pretty good close working relationship with our provincial risk manager that works for and under the umbrella of the Manitoba School Boards Association. So he was grateful to get a copy of it this past week. So for those of you that have similar roles in your provinces, I think those are just, again, connecting as many dots as we can, especially when it comes to the safety liability pieces. Those types of people will be very instrumental in us being able to move forward what we want to. So.
Yeah, thanks, Grant. And I think that's true. Like, if we have the opportunity to have a conversation with, whether it's our ministries, whether it's our regions with our superintendents or our executive directors, because this isn't an area of expertise for many of them, that this is a great opportunity for us to start doing some of that learning and that, or some of that teaching, I should say, and advocacy piece within, at a time when it's probably needed the most. And I think it'll be highly appreciated by those who really don't have an idea about how do we go about doing this. And so hopefully, if you have an opportunity, if you have those relationships, that you can share this with those decision makers and start the conversations. And so I see Lara Patterson, also PHE Canada board member, and worked on these documents as well. Lara, you have a question, or you want
Just
to
to
share?
build on what others have said, Grant, the teacher federations in Ontario, we're awaiting in the month of June, likely towards the end of June, the minister's plan for return to school. And so these are already in the hands of the Minister of Education in Ontario, as well as the superintendents, the directors, the federations. One other group we have here is it started as a parent advocacy group called People for Education, and they're really pushing the government's hand to have stakeholders included at that table as part of the return to school plan. So they have the document as well, and we're thrilled to have that piece of evidence-based material to really support the how, so that it doesn't get left out. And that's it.
Thanks, Lara. I think a couple of really good points. Grant talking about the risk management piece, and we're all positioned, no matter where we're at in our roles or our careers as phys ed and health teachers, to create that understanding of what phys ed and health looks like now, because maybe those folks who are making decisions may not have that understanding. So we have a role, and this document can help us do that really well. And I know that when we consider safety going back, proximity and volume are concerns that our schools have to consider until we have a vaccine, or if we have a second wave, which seems to be what our province is talking about and many others. So that's a great point about the risk management piece. So thanks, Grant. I see that Ross Campbell from New Brunswick has his hand up, and I know Ross has done some things with the document already. So Ross, are you able to unmute and share with us?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, we've shared the document along a few vines in New Brunswick already with administration people up, superintendents who have all been really appreciative of the document, looking at it from a lens through PE and health, but also looking at it through a lens of other curriculum as just a systemic sort of way of approaching return to school come fall. And I think they appreciate that piece of it. Who I really think is appreciating it more than not is the few teachers I've shared it with, who actually now see themselves with some sort of a role come fall, because they were unsure of what they would do. So I think this is going to put a lot of ease once it's shared with teachers as well as administrators and decision makers and people like that, because I think that is where, like a colleague of mine says, the sneakers on the gym floor, that's what matters is they need to be the ones who are using this document, living through this document. So that the response from those teachers so far has been really good. And next week in New Brunswick, we're doing a series of these calls with our level teachers on the basis of this document and what they can expect and what they can maybe need to think about coming into August, September.
Yeah, and Ross, I think too is that it's empowering for our teachers to have a document that they can now take and modify for their environment based on whatever public health protocols are within their provinces. Because I think right now, province to province, things look a little different. There's not really a consistent message or method happening right now around ongoing learning. So whether you're back to school currently or if you're still within the at-home learning parameters. And so I think some of the feedback that I've received is just around that they feel like they have something tangible that empowers them to be able to advocate and say, well, yes, we can do this, and this is how, which is great. And so I also see that Justin, I'm not sure where Justin is from, but Justin had his hand up.
Hey, Lori, it's Justin from Nova Scotia. I just want to give credit to PHE Canada for the document and all the contributors. just because I got an email from the Nova Scotia Teachers Union sharing the document with me and the chance I hadn't received it, and they were really impressed with the document. So it's great to see that Nova Scotia Teachers Union find value in this document. Our president, Paul Wozni, has been a supporter of physical and health education here in Nova Scotia, and this is just another way to help us move forward in the fall when it comes to physical and health education in Nova Scotia. So just want to say thanks.
Thanks, Justin. I thought I was unmuted there. Has anybody else had any kind of feedback from their unions or their local union reps around the guidelines, or have they seen the guidelines? Has it been shared with them?
I'll chime in, Lori, although Megan, our president, may have to also pop in if she wants to. I believe she was sharing it with the union, but I don't know if I mentioned in the beginning of the call, but my role is with the ministry, and I know I've shared it with our deputy minister and our minister, as well as our board, so our director and our assistant director. And I think going back to what I was saying earlier, it was like a thank you. We really need this information around. We know we need to support well-being and health and the physical health of our learners when they come back, whatever that looks like, and to have something tangible for them to inform themselves when they go to have conversations with principals, and then trickling back to teachers on the, I noticed someone in the chat saying this is an I can document. So that was my experience here. I don't know if Megan wants to weigh in with the union, or maybe, you know, they're all very busy. They maybe haven't had a chance to respond yet, but I know she was working on sharing that.
Yeah, I can jump in. I don't have anything, just to say that I haven't heard back yet, but the information has been sent on to our teachers and shared on social media. So it's definitely getting out there.
Thanks, Megan. I see Kelly, is Kelly Baker. I don't know if you want to unmute and chime in from Newfoundland.
Hi, I can. My internet has been very spotty. I could be gone in 1 second. So we'll see what we can accomplish here. Yeah, I've got really good feedback on it as well from physical activity partners as well. So I sent it around to as many people as I possibly could. And I kind of did it as a contributor to the document so I wouldn't get stuck in the red tape of sending it from the Health Education Council. So I sent it to all levels of government I could, physical activity, stakeholders, the administration, special interest council, the school counselors, special interest council. So they're like, you know, our phys ed council and our health education council. We have councils for a lot of different things. So yeah, just as many people as I possibly could. And the response that I've gotten back is positive, but that's what people tend to do. They tend to, you know, respond to you with positive things. So one question I have is, and I guess one comment is, it is a working document. I think that that is a really positive thing. It's a working document. It's not a finished document. COVID-19 isn't finished. So, you know, it's a working document. It's going to keep going. It's going to evolve. And I think that is really important. I mean, it's very early stages, but it's really important for the people on this call and the people who interact with the document to let PHE Canada know, what have we missed? Where are the holes? How can we make it better? It is a great document, but you know, it can have some improvements too. We don't have a national curriculum. We're provincial based. You know, contexts are so varied across our vast country. So it would really be, I think, beneficial to have as much input as we could to make the document even better, more inclusive, more diverse, and meet the needs of more people. So I do encourage people to do that. But yeah, I was privileged to be involved. I think it really is a solid document, and that is the feedback I am getting. Thanks.
Thanks, Kelly. You took the words right out of our mouth. Thankfully, that is the whole point of this topic on the call, is please weigh in on it. And you know, we've put right in the document, it doesn't intend to override board policies and things like that either, but you know, inform how to make those decisions. And we know how quickly we've moved in the last 10 weeks around. We never would have thought last year we'd need to plan for anything like not even being in school. So what does the second wave look like? And we appreciate that PHE has designed this in a way to collect everyone's feedback and contribute. And you're going to find things that were missed because the target is moving really quickly these days. So thanks, Kelly.
And I was just looking at the chat. Heather likes happiness. Has a comment or a question? Heather?
Thanks, Lori. Hi, everyone from Alberta. Okay, that Heather likes happiness. I changed it on a call and a meeting I was at a few weeks ago. I don't know how to change it back because all these platforms, it's funny. I just have to do a shout out. I see Ross, I see Kelly, all of my peeps. I was Alberta rep on PHE Canada for years back, and I see a lot of faces and a lot of these contributors. It's oh, hi friend, hi Kim. So it's like romper room for those of you that are old enough, and I'm sure you've all heard that said, but it's weird though, right? I'm a big hugger, Ross, eh? Anyways, so thank you for allowing me a second to chat. Couple of things. Just before this call, I was in a meeting with my boss, and we put out a survey. My counterpart in Edmonton Public, I'm Edmonton Catholic consultant, and I'm an HPEC executive member for many years. And we, like Stacey had said, Alberta unfortunately missed the boat when we put things out to say what was going to happen, and our focus was literacy and numeracy in the academic core, and missed a huge opportunity to include any of the wellness in our messaging from March 15th forward. I was very lucky in my school district division, as well as others, that we've put it at the forefront, so it's still happening for us, but in what that looks like is very different. So this is awesome, very timely, so well done PHE and all the contributors. Before this, I was meeting with my boss because we put a survey out yesterday to our parents, our teachers, and to our students with regards to just how they're feeling and their ideas for return for next year. And my boss was telling me this morning that they had over 700 students reply yesterday, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is within the first couple of hours. And overwhelmingly, the number one question and comment that the students had was, what about phys ed, and what will that look like next year? So that's super awesome. They're obviously either missing it and all of them were asking what's going to happen, and I hope we're having it, and what will that look like? So that was a really positive moving forward, and right before I jumped on this call. So I just want to say again, thank you, and we'll keep fighting the fight, sharing it as much as we can. And I have a call on Monday with my high school department heads, and they're super excited to share this and see what we can do. Of course, obviously, we're tied by whatever our government comes out with in terms of some of those things, but this is a great platform to start. So once again, we know HPEC is always seems to be provincially on the forefront of a lot of the things that our other specialist councils look after. So I think the same is said here with PHE Canada. So 2 thumbs up. Happy Friday. That was more than just a couple of things. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Heather. And yeah, I think, we may be surprised at what comes out of this from areas that typically would not have given maybe much attention or focus, or, the feedback I've been getting from our math and literacy consultants here in my region has been incredibly positive. And so they want to look at ways at how they can create more active classrooms, but in the same kind of protocols. If we go back to a blended learning environment, or if we go back full time. And so that would never have happened this time last year. They were just so focused on their curricular areas that they didn't really have a broad spectrum or a broad view of what it could look like. And so I'm really excited about some of the conversations that are starting to percolate. We had a question from Brenda Carberry. Brenda, you had a question around consultation. Did you want to bring that forward?
Sorry, I just stepped out to eat something. My question was very simply, did we consult with people abroad who've been going through this a little bit longer than we have, and how they've returned and what struggles we have gone on with them?
So I think maybe Melanie, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can. So great question. And I was actually reading the chat line there, and there are a couple pieces that I thought I could quickly answer. So as Mary Beth said at the beginning, this was created in a very short timeline. So for sure, in order to do that, we had to consult, and we drew a lot on Australia's work because they already had guidelines that came out. And as well, there were individual schools or jurisdictions around the world that had little pieces, and they weren't robust, but they were kind of guiding documents for us in order to how are we going to move forward. So yeah, we did a really good scan of what was out there, both at the school level and then also nationally. But there's not a lot out there. There's a lot of commentary. And so as well, we had a good stack of articles and opinions that we were wading through in order to come out with what we thought were concrete steps. And so, to the other comments that are on there around how can this be shared? We didn't have time to go through the Creative Commons and get the copyright stuff up, but yes, it absolutely is a conversation starter. So even those that are commenting in the chat line that are from the States, there's not a lot out there, so please use it and work with it. So it's an open source document. I can also chat just really quickly about the other piece that was added. So we really tried to ensure that we were grounding our opinions and on our work in what students, in student voice and choice. And so the last comment was really, really great about the survey, because I think that was an element that we tried to make something that put the educators in the best position to meet the needs of young people. So it's good for us to stand back from our pedagogical point of view and say this is what should happen, right? But we were able to, through kind of check-ins with young people around the country, make sure that what we were putting in there was actually going to be of interest and meet the needs of students. And I think that's what guided the decision to put the kind of health and well-being and the trauma-informed and the relationship and social and emotional learning at the front of the document. There was a lot of thought in the placement of that piece. So I'll put it back to you, Mary Beth.
Thanks, Melanie. I think we just launched a poll there, although I don't see PEI in the list, but I guess we'll have to indicate that otherwise. If you want to take a second to just complete the poll. And I know that we have a question from Catherine, my friend Catherine in Montreal. If you've had a chance to contribute to the poll, Catherine, and you want to unmute, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi. Yeah, it was just around, just curious if anyone has moved forward with plans to have equipped students with kits at home. I know some of our high schools have started talking about it, but just sort of at the discussion phase so far, I'm just wondering if anyone has done that.
Grant, did you unmute to contribute to that?
Yeah, thanks, Mary Beth. On May 14th, there was a town hall discussion with the education sector and our public health officer, who has been directing the province. And one of the questions came up around returning to schools, et cetera, was actually around library books and what his thoughts were on, kids and library books. And two takeaways for me on that and related to phys ed was, he said the age group that we're working at within school is such a low risk age group. And, something like returning a library book, again, is very low risk. So it got me thinking about, the question that Catherine asked around, phys ed kits and what equipment might we be able to use when we get back to schools. Thinking like things like in a class where we may be offering badminton, whether it's singles or I still think maybe doubles, you could still socially distance. But, where a student has a piece of equipment for the entire class and they're not sharing it back and forth, I think is a possibility more now than maybe what I thought 2 weeks ago. I also talked to our maintenance department, and the solutions that they have in our schools in spray bottles, he said, is more than readily available. And by spraying the handles down to the rackets, within 7 minutes and a wipe down, they're good to go again. So just some initial thoughts that we're starting to have, or at least I'm starting to mull around on my own noggin and having some conversations with phys ed staff. So I think there's more hope now than there was even when we put this document together like 6 days ago. So these types of conversations are really, really important. And when I say cleaning solution, it wasn't sanitizing. It was just the normal cleaning solution that they're using in schools. So I know there's been a big, I guess, concern, and rightfully so, about sanitization. But like our public health officer, he continues to talk about the two most important things: that's social distancing and then proper hand washing with soap and water. And obviously, if you don't have a sink available, then a sanitizing solution is appropriate. But this fear of, or this thought that we're not going to have enough sanitizing agent, good old soap and water works. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think if I can jump in there, Mary Beth, there was a really interesting discussion in British Columbia, and they have many of their, the frontline service workers' kids have been in school already. And so it was really good to be able to hear their experiences and what they are doing. The question came up about whether individual students would need their own PE kits and what would go in that. And the question of equity and being able to ensure that everyone can afford what's in there, right? So making sure that it's very low cost dollar store skipping ropes, the question of like balls, and does it have to be a $50 ball? Can it just be a scrunched up piece of paper? Can it, just really thinking about that equity question about what goes in those kits if students are going to be expected to bring them. There's also conversations about adding a few PE things to the list of supplies that students would need in the fall. So really paying attention to cost of that. And then what can the schools provide? And it says in the guidelines that there needs to be dollars allocated to making sure that there's enough there's enough equipment for or basic equipment so that every student can have their own designated gear. So I don't know if there's any BC folks on the line, but it would be really fantastic to hear from them. And if not, I'll throw out that skipping's been a big thing.
Hi, I'm Craig. I'm here with Hector from Miami, Manitoba. I just joined. And we're, just to give you some perspective, we're a very small school, K-12, 300 kids. But we sent kids home. The phys ed teacher went and called all the K-6 students up, and we sent home a lot of supplies that they can use from now till September so that they can be physically active. But that's not necessarily easy for big city schools or bigger districts. But I mean, in Manitoba, our numbers are also low as well. It's not a problem. But we just called up the parents and said, here's what we have. What would you like? And we just dropped it at the end of the driveway. And they have it now to the summertime, and we'll collect them back when school starts in September.
I think too is one of the things, conversations I had with our director of operations yesterday was around space and the utilization of space. And, you know, for those larger class sizes, where, you know, we've heard stories where the gymnasiums have been taken to ensure that the social distancing parameters have been met by some of our larger class sizes, and PE has been suspended. Was looking at, you know, what does that mean for us, for small rural schools who have access to alternative spaces. Some are larger outdoor spaces than others, but, you know, he seemed to be in agreement that that his staff would be able to support continuing of a somewhat modified PE program, which was quite hopeful as well, because I've just been seeing on the chat that, you know, some of the custodian unions have been saying teachers aren't able to sanitize or wipe down because they're not trained and it's not in their contract. And so he, you know, it was really nice to have that conversation with him and hear that he's on board and trying to make this happen for us in our region. So if you have a relationship with your custodians or your directors of operations in your regions, maybe sharing this document with them might be a good idea. I also see, Ross, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had to find the mute button. In New Brunswick, we're looking to sort of focus more on the type of curriculum that we can teach come fall, as opposed to focusing on what we can't teach. So we're looking at things that don't necessarily need equipment, things that you can do. So we're kind of calling it strategic curriculum mapping for the fall for teachers. And we're going to have these discussions the next week or so, but we're looking at, you know, teaching locomotor movements, teaching creative dance, teaching movement to music, doing all those different things, outdoor orienteering, different things like that. There's all kinds of elements within our curriculums. And I know the curriculums are worded different across the country, but essentially they're all the same. That those options are all relevant and available that we can do. We just got to be creative in how we do this and how we work with this mindset. And that's kind of the approach we're taking in New Brunswick is, you know, individual sport-based stuff like Grant was saying, you know, badminton, things like that. I think we can work into those types of activities, striking type things, but really focusing on more things outside of equipment, body awareness, body movement, those types of things.
Thanks, Ross. You're reading my mind to thinking about the learning before the tool or the resource. And I know I've done that lots of times as a teacher. I found the thing and then I've gone backwards to what the outcome was. But I guess I'm learning and have learned of what is it we want our students to learn. And then one of the things I love about this document is that we have the student's voice in there. And there are things on there that I would not have considered as a phys ed specialist. I probably wouldn't have taught physical theater because you probably wouldn't want to see me teach physical theater, but it's really interesting to see what do the students want to learn. They understand that, I mean, maybe primary, it's a little different, but they're understanding that they're learning in a different way too. And so what are the outcomes? And then we talk about that backward design, and I probably should let Kelly Baker talk about this, but you know, what is it that we want them to learn, and then go from there. And so from September to November, we revised, or September to December, we revised the curriculum, and we're outside as much as we can. And anyway, I'm just repeating what you said, Ross, but it's a really great point. So thank you for making it. I see Brian McMillan has a question or a hand up. I'm not sure where you're from, Brian, if you want to unmute.
Well, hello, I hope you can hear me. I'm Brian McMillan. Mick, some of you should know me. I owe some of you money, but I'm the president of PHE Manitoba. The new president started last week. I kind of wish that this was just going to be about cutting ribbons and kissing babies, but we're in a pandemic, and I kind of jumped in feet first. And we got a great crew in Manitoba. Way to go! We have the highest percentage on that poll. I like that we're all in here. But I was just going to say, in Frontier School Division, where I'm one of the phys ed coordinators, we're we were talking with our staff yesterday about doing Indigenous games planning starting in June for the fall, where the students would create their own packages. We had a PD session with Blair Robillard from the University of Manitoba. It was well received, and that's just one of the things that we're doing. I like the idea of creating these phys ed kits, and way to go to everybody here. You stepped up to the plate when everything went upside down, and good on phys ed, and thank you, PHE Canada. You are the people. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, Mick, and welcome to the COPT table. And so it's exciting, and it's been exciting since the beginning of these calls to see how our community just comes together and always rises to the occasion. And so I think we're probably over 2,200 people now since the beginning of these chats, connecting and collaborating. So I think that shows that we have passion and power in this field. And so thanks for that. And Kayla Taro, I hope I said your name correctly. You were asking about extracurricular sport and high school teams or school sport. Did you want to speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, I was just wondering what that was going to look like. We haven't heard much of any feedback just for sports like those cross country and volleyball. It kind of came up because I had to submit permits for the gym for 2020, 2021. And I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I was just kind of wondering what that'll look like. Grant kind of answered my question there earlier in the chat.
Has there been any discussion in any other provinces around fall extracurriculars or fall sport? Or
Lori, maybe I'll jump in if you don't mind. My
absolutely
response in the chat. Phase 2 from government planning of restoring, services under schools. They did talk about sports, band, extracurriculars being back going, but I think that was a bit quick from their perspective. Most school divisions that I've been in contact with from extracurricular, they're out of bounds until the end of June until we resume. And there was a message came out from the executive director from Sport Manitoba, so I would think this would apply across the country. The message from Jeff Natchik was all sports have to create a return to play protocol with respect to COVID-19 that needs to be approved by their national governing body. Then it needs to be approved by Sport Manitoba, and then it goes to government before any sport in Manitoba will be resuming play.
Okay. That's good to know. I'll check to see if that's common practice or if that is a standard that all provinces are going to adopt as well. Has anybody else heard within their provinces around school sport or extracurriculars for the fall?
Hi, I'm Tricia Boyer. I'm working with school sports here in Newfoundland. And our council, which are all phys ed teachers, we're under the understanding that the priority right now is to make sure that physical education classes are being delivered. And once those are being delivered under the guidance, with the guidelines, then we can open up our extracurricular. We don't want extracurricular to take the emphasis away from the curricular. It's supposed to complement each other. So that's our stance. And again, like Grant had said, every high school sport will have to, follow the guidelines of the return to play for each individual sport and see how that works within our own district schools, because ultimately they have to say as to whether extracurricular will occur. But from Newfoundland's perspective, from our school sport council, is that we really want to push to make sure that children have an opportunity to participate in curricular as well as extracurricular. It's not one or the other. Thank you.
Yeah, can I jump in real quick? Lenny Parham from the Department of Education in New Jersey, in the United States. There's a few documents that are out regarding summer camps and also extracurricular activity in terms of sports in the fall. So the National Federation of High School Sports just put out a document earlier this week. The Institute of Sport in Australia has a good document as well that's out, and also the Aspen Institute of Sport also has a great document. So those are 3 great documents that I think will help guide you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And so I have Nazia. Did I say your name right? I'm sorry if I didn't. Did you have a question or a comment that you wanted to share?
Yeah, we've just been told that no team sports next year, because that means that 2 schools, more students, too many people gathering in one spot. They're really encouraging us to spend all our time with the students outdoors, rain or like maybe not in the rain, but snow or you know, any other time of the year. So it looks like it's going to be just very, very different. And obviously for badminton too, the goggles or the safety glasses, like, can the students even share something like that, or should it be on their list of things that they should buy for their school year? Because they'll come in handy for a few different things. But yeah, we'll just have to adapt, I guess.
And so what school district are you, oops, sorry. I was just going to ask, what school district are you from?
I'm in Ontario, Southwestern Ontario, and it's a French school board. So we have Physette as prep time. And thank God they're keeping the Physette as prep time, because it's well-being, it's you know, it increases well-being. So we'll just have to work around it that way.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Mary Beth.
I'm just aware of the time, and I think we do have another poll to pop up. And just while that's coming up, I know there are some folks on here thinking about Renee. I'm not sure if Ted's on the call, who were contributors to the guidelines, who may want to say something before people have to start leaving to get on to other things today. So I think we're going to pop up the poll, and if anyone else wants to chime in, please unmute and do so.
Hello, everybody. I'm Renee Gregerson from BC, and I just want to say again, thank you for allowing me to be a part of the document creation. Collaboration with so many professionals and experiential people has been fabulous, and even conversations like this from people all over Canada I'm so thankful for. What I do really like about the document is how it talked about fostering a sense of physical and emotional safety. There's been a lot of trauma that's happened to our students and to our educators. And I think that, you know, the simplicity of some of the activities or ideas within this living document really allows a sense of comfort and sort of control for people's lives moving forward within PHE and education. And so I think that, you know, it's even a reminder of sort of some things that educators do. And it's like, this is healthy, this is positive. And so, you know, we're talking about equipment and the use and not, it's all very important, but at the same time, just being there for our students, for our learners, and showing that we love them and we care about them and we're here for them, and this is a safe place for them to be, is so valuable. And yeah, and so I think just trying to really remember that, and this document I think really does that. So so thank you for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. And also, you know, it's one of the conversations that I had yesterday with my region was, you know, what did they foresee the fall to look like? And it's still such a huge unknown. And the unknown is also what's contributing to maybe some higher levels of stress and angst for not only our students, but for ourselves. And so, like Renee said, you know, being able to connect in conversation with other professionals and colleagues you know, sharing our experiences and being there for each other will allow us, hopefully, when we do get back to our students, be able to be there for them, because we're managing our own health and well-being, so we can help them with theirs. And so that is really, truly important. And that's another kind of rationale behind this document, was to help alleviate some of that ambiguity in a time where it's nothing but ambiguity. And so really thankful for all of you being able to take time out of your schedules, because if you're like me, the Zoom calls start at 8:30 in the morning and they go until 4:30 in the afternoon. And after a while, your eyes glaze over. And so I thank you for joining us again today, and for Mary Beth for being with us as well. And so we have another poll up there just around, you know, do you feel prepared to return to school? You know, and we're kind of in the middle. Some are, it's around the somewhat, and it's the somewhat that everybody's kind of probably getting caught up on. Is I think if we had more definitives, we would have more definitive answers in that poll and with that question. And will you use the guidelines to help develop your own return to school plan? And, you know, the majority of you have said yes, and yes with a caveat. So that's really, really great that you feel that this is a resource that you can use in some way, shape, or form. So Mary Beth, do you have any last parting words for our group?
Just thanks to PHE, Laurie, Melanie, and the team for the opportunity to be part of the call. I learned so much, actually ever since I engaged with PHE way back a few decades ago, but and the people who have contributed either by unmuting or asking the questions, I want to go back and read. I know we've missed some, so but thank you for putting them in there. You've made this a richer discussion, and I think it's just the start of a conversation, and these guidelines are a start for where we're at now. So please keep bringing those thoughts forward. You may see gaps, and I think I can speak for PHE that they want to know those gaps for you where you're at, and so we can address them in the guidelines going forward. Thank you. Happy Friday.
And next week, we will be having our conversation around the guidelines for our French colleagues. So any of your colleagues that are working within our French language schools, please share with them the opportunity to have a conversation around this next week. And then within probably mid-June, Deg Letty and I are going to host our kind of a virtual field day or our end of year conversation, and to just finish off the series of calls that we've had, and then discuss what the future looks like in regarding to being able to come together and using this platform. So please give us feedback. We're here for you. We're interested in how we can best support you, especially during this time. So this document is created for our field, and so we only feel that it can improve if we get feedback on it. And so please do share with us. Melanie, any parting words?
Yes, I was just going to repeat the idea that please share the document with everyone who you think needs it. So I think PHE Canada nationally has definitely had a role in creating these, but in order to get the actual sneakers on the floor, it's about sharing it within your schools, within your jurisdictions, within your provinces. And so it's there for you to share and initiate those discussions. So please share widely.
Great, thank you everyone. The poll results are up, but thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week, hopefully.